Hello, friends. Welcome to Squaird Plans, where creative planning and organization comes to life. I'm Stephanie, and today we're going to be designing my faith planner for the month of June. We'll be setting up a monthly layout, month overview, and quadrant weekly layouts in a disc-bound classic happy planner. So come plan with me. And I've got these highlighters here all ready to go, as well as this blending palette and water brush pen, this sticker book from Hobby Lobby, these Happy Planner sticker books, and this Narrative Hues Girl Boss Anna sticker book, which I'll pull from. Okay, you guys, let's go ahead and get started on this month's theme. I'll lay down some wax paper and tape it down just so we can work out and fine-tune the idea I have for the month. I'm going to open up the pages to the places where I think I'm going to be pulling stickers from most in these sticker books. And then I had pre-pulled a sheet of different stickers from these books to try to figure out how I was going to use these different stickers together in my theme. So I'm starting off by actually watercoloring over these paper stickers using just the highlighter colors I'd pulled and a tiny bit of water in a water brush pen to create a little bit of color and variety here onto these black and white florals. I've done this once before in the past, and you do have to be a little bit careful not to get the sticker too wet. The sticker does kind of have a porousness to it that will make it hard to stick down if you take too long with that step. So just keep that in mind. You really want to keep it as dry as possible so that the sticker is still effective. But what I decided to do here is to color each sticker cluster in a single color, limiting my color palette to this kind of coral orange tone, the more warm golden yellow, and then this dusty kind of gray blue tone as well. And basically I got that color palette from this Faith sticker book that I grabbed from Hobby Lobby. It's from the Paper Studio line that Hobby Lobby carries. And I got it on clearance back in, I want to say, February of 2023. I just like the style of this book, but there's not a ton of big quotes or anything like that. So I'm going to try to make them as bold as possible by wrapping them in the florals and with these kind of color swashes that I'll be using from the Happy Planner books and from the Girl Boss Anna sticker book. So, like I said, I'm kind of working with this watercolor theme and using each cluster in its own color. The quotes themselves, some of them do have a mix of colors in there, but for the most part, all the surrounding areas will have one single color kind of grounding that cluster. For this top area where there's some empty boxes for the month, I'm using that peachy coral tone. Well, I guess it's almost like a pink as well. Using that tone up there, and then for the bottom, I'm using the dusty blue and just combining those florals with the kind of background swash of color. Then I'll add in usually a little bit of the texture from the Happy Planner sticker book, as well as the quote on top. And then on most of them, I'm going to add in the Girl Boss Anna Narrative Hues overlay as well. So that will be the combination that I'll be using throughout to make this theme all feel cohesive. And now we'll start dropping in those stickers just to see how things will come together here on this first spread. I like that the colors are all centralized in each cluster. I do wish that there was a little bit more of a limited color palette even for the quotes, but I think that they all work together in the end. I would just prefer them to be a little bit more homogeneous in color. And just going to go ahead and lay some of these down and do some trimming. So next I'm going to go ahead and just lay in a little wash of the yellow tone and the boxes here on the monthly, just so that I have a spot to put in my scripture reading verses for the day. So that's what I'll be putting there. And then within the boxes, that's where I do my takeaway or my something that I took away from the Bible reading each day. I think that's going to be it for the monthly layout. Let's go ahead and move on to the month overview area where I have like my prayer lists, my habit trackers, and my currently questions for the month. Here I have another cluster of those florals that I'm going to go ahead and color in with the coral color. Just again, using some of that highlighter there on my blending palette, which is basically just a sheet of laminated paper, and can use the water on to mix in the color. And so I'm going to use this big cluster up here on the top part of the left, and then I'll pull in some other options here so that I can get that variety of color all around the spread. So I have some of these florals that are cut off already. I'll try to pull in a few of those, but mainly I think I'll be using the sort of rounded clusters without any cuts so that I can fit it perfectly where I want it and cut where needed. Here I'll combine a few of those floral clusters. Again, I'm going to color in the clusters in one single color, but I also need to pull in the background tone. So this kind of shows you what each cluster is going to have within it. So each will have some sort of background wash of color as a sticker from that Wild Journey sticker book. And then they'll have the black and white florals that I'm putting in next to them, which will each be watercolored in the color of the cluster. For this one here, I'm going to go ahead and trim it off so I can make these two florals look like they're part of one piece. Maybe reuse those leaves that I trimmed off here on the opposite side to kind of complete things out. And I have that in. Let's go ahead and color in those florals while I'm thinking about it and got it ready to go. Same technique here. On these clusters, I am coloring in most of the leaves. The only one I didn't really do all of the elements is on the really small kind of petite florals there in the blue. Just went ahead and left those white, but did the leaves and the bigger florals in the watercolor. So now I need to pick out a quote or two for this page. I will draw in a verse for the month there in the top right side of the page, so I don't need to have too much going on as far as quotes. And because of that, I could pull in this prayer requests quote to cover up the prayer list area and just make that look like it's all part of that one cluster. Just seeing if there's anything else in this book that fits the bill as far as quotes and what I could pull in here. But I think that's going to have to do it for now. Let's go ahead and move on to the elements that I want to bring in from the Narrative Hues Girl Boss Anna sticker book. And back to the Wild Journey for some texture with these little, I don't know, blobby, I don't know, what would you call those? Those little clusters of texture. We're just going to call them clusters of texture. Bringing those in the same color family as well. Trying to find a good shade that really matches up with that dusky blue tone that I have there in the corner. And I think this one's a pretty close match. There are a couple of sizes in each of the colors available in that book, so I'm going to pull a little bit of a smaller one down here just because I got a lot going on with the smaller details of the florals, and maybe rearrange things a bit just so I can get all the elements in as needed. Maybe since there's already some black texture there on the background element, I'll just leave the blue additional texture off on this one, just because it is a little bit overwhelming with the smaller florals. Laying things now onto the page, just making some adjustments as I go, and trimming off the edge so that I don't have that header as part of the cluster. Laid in the blue, let's go ahead and finish things out with the coral cluster up here at the top. I'm loving that. I love the 3 colors there in a group on the page. I think that looks really good. I'm going to lay in a little bit more of the yellow just as like a highlight area for my habit trackers. And maybe I'll add some more in as the month progresses with some more color in the highlighted areas. But for now, that should really do it. So next we're going to move on to the weeklies, and I've been doing the same process pretty much throughout the entire year, where I'm just decorating the this week box on each of the weeklies, and I do the full month in the same theme. So what I'm going to do here is pull out the colors and just kind of build out the individual elements I'll need for each of the clusters that I'll be using each week, and I'll make each week themed in that colorway. So when I actually put in my verse of the day, which is how I use the weeklies, I'll use that color throughout the entire spread, so the whole spread will be either coral, yellow, or the blue. So I'm just going to start with the main background elements, and now I'll look and see what I have as far as quotes and what we want to do on each of those clusters for the quotes. I think on this one, I'm going to pull in some of these box stickers just because I don't think there's enough of the bigger quotes to really work all of the different spreads that I need. So we'll do some with the clear quotes, but we'll also mix in some of the boxes as well. I'm also going to go ahead and pull at the same time the elements I need for the back page just to finish off the theme. So this page will pre-plan basically the entire rest of the spreads. So just flipping through, seeing if there's anything else I wanted to pull in, but I think we've got a pretty good set of quotes to work with now. I'm going to go ahead and look and see what I have for these black and white florals and what I have to lay in. So I'll just pull out the major ones first. The very large one there I'll use on the very back page, and then maybe work in that smaller cluster somewhere on one of the weeklies. And then for the rest of the weeklies, we'll use these larger, more rounded clusters that I have from the other sticker book. So I'm just putting them in the order that I think they're going to go there on the individual weeks, and just kind of cleaning out some of these empty pages now. So I have those sticker sheets on hand. So next we'll go ahead and color these guys in. We'll just do them all more in like a efficient bulk coloring, starting with the lightest color usually first and working my way towards the blue. And the first one here will be in the yellow tone. So like I said, I'm going to color in the major florals and then most of the leaves, but if there's anything else that's fairly small, I'll leave those as is in the white. And we've got that for the yellow. Moving on into the coral, we'll paint in those stickers as well. Again, focusing mostly on the larger elements as far as the coloring, letting the finer details go. And we got this one big one here that we'll be using on the back page, so I want to make sure I get that colored in. And then I realized I'm going to also need to color in that floral cluster there on the side in yellow. So I'll need to go back and clean my brush and go back into the yellow a little bit before I move on to the blue. That's just going to be an additional cluster that I'll have on that back page just to balance things out. Okay, so finally we moved on to the blue tone, and again, just going to color in those clusters using that same technique. Really simple. I mean, I'm not even bothering being too delicate with the lines. I mean, there's a lot of overflow on some of these. Just trying to get an idea of the color and more of a wash of color. So I think in the end really turns out great. Like I said, you don't need a lot of skill, I don't think, to really make that happen. So now I'm going to go into that Girl Boss Anna sticker book again and find some matching overlay stickers here for each cluster. Trying to match up the colors as best as I can from what's inside of the book. Using some of the large ones and some of the small ones, just depending on how busy I think each cluster is going to be. And now we'll pull in the texture overlay elements in the matching colors as well. And just seeing if there's anything else I have in here that I need to pull in for that yellow cluster on the back. Maybe one other quote. That should fit in nicely. Okay, so let's actually combine these elements together for each of the weeks. And we'll start here with this yellow one. Just putting the items together. Trying to find a good balance of elements as I lay things in. And that looks good. Moving on to the blue one. I do want to cover up a majority of the black texture on this, since most of them don't have that. It sometimes can be a little bit distracting, but those were the only ones I had in that blue background color, so I am trying to use it to its fullest. Takes a minute here to figure out the best combination of elements and positions. But that's looking pretty good. I'm liking that. Just needs to be tucked in a little bit more, feel a little more connected. But I think that will work. Now we'll move on to this coral tone. Now on this one, maybe we'll do it a little bit more top and bottom since the quote's a bit more vertical. So each cluster is unique. Combining the elements, again, just trying to find a good balance. I think it really works because we have odd numbers of elements pretty much for all of these clusters. So it just makes it a little bit easier to find balance when you have that. Something to keep in mind if you are building out a cluster set or sticker set of items. Keeping the numbers odd usually will help you design the cluster with more balance and more interest as well. In this one, we'll do something different to add a little bit more variety. I'll turn the background on its side so it's a little bit more vertical, but also combine the elements in a similar pattern with the florals on the top and the quote near the bottom, but a little bit offset on this one. And next we're moving into the yellow. This one I didn't have another real large solid background, so we're combining two separate backgrounds to create that illusion of continued color behind the floral cluster. And I think that kind of works. It's a little bit less apparent though on this one. And for some reason, the dots too from the texture look a little bit more orange on this one. So smooth some things around, just try to enhance the yellow as much as possible. And I think that'll do it for the weekly. So let's go ahead and move those over now, and then we'll finish things out on the back page. So I got the first cluster in. And now we're going to move on to the next one. I actually ended up putting the yellow one on the second week of the month. So I'm going to have to rearrange these a little bit so that the color variances stay in order. The coral color is the center week. And then we'll go on to the blue again. And then finish things out here with the yellow tone. Like I said, I'll be using each week in their own colors, so we'll find some markers to tie in each of those 3 colors in the hand lettering I'll do for the week. Probably be using Arteza markers this week since I've tried using the highlighters last month and that chisel tip really just was not jiving with me, so we'll have to think of another color pen set to use instead of trying to make those highlighters work because it just did not flow for me all throughout May. So now we're on to the back page. I'm going to go ahead and figure out what these clusters are going to look like here on the wax paper and start off by combining these yellows together. Trim off the background of that coral piece so that the header is removed and then try to work it into the corner, combining it with that large floral cluster. It's a little bit tricky on this one, I will say. Again, it's a little bit harder to make these clusters work when you have that quote with multiple colors in it. It looks good, but again, it just is a little bit trickier. It doesn't have quite the same effect as if you keep all of the color in one shade or one tone. So got that in, go ahead and trim out those bottom pieces. Try to reuse anything that I can here in and around the spread. Beef up that cluster a little bit. And drop in this top cluster. I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece of this yellow cluster off, just a smidge, so that it has a little bit less prominence up here at the top. Maybe use this smaller piece instead of the larger piece. I think it'll fit better in the space. And once I'm done with that, you guys, we will be done, friends. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below. Also, too, go ahead and leave me a comment if you'd like to get in touch. And think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, if you'd like to see more of my videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Bye.